What's the most badass example of girls support girls you've ever seen? I was getting my hair done at Studio 67 when I noticed the redhead beside me was FaceTiming my fiancé. Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. I vomited in my mouth. I can't believe we've been together for 8 months already. The redhead giggled into the screen. Like, hello? My hairstylist must have seen me cry because her hands stopped. Babe, you okay? I pointed at the girl's iPhone. That's my fiancé. The entire salon went silent. 20 girls with perfect blowouts just staring. The redhead whipped around so fast. Wait, girl, I'm so sorry, I swear I didn't know. Every single girl started moving. Someone handed me their Labubu keychain for comfort. Another girl was already fixing my mascara with a wipe. 3 years, I choked out. We've been together 3 years. He told me he was a career man and I was his first love, the redhead said, and she looked like she was gonna pass out. First love? Someone in the back screamed it. I opened Snapchat and showed them my 1 year ago today. It was a video of my ex-fiancé hand feeding me macarons by the Eiffel Tower. She went white. When was this? Last year. He said he was at a work conference. Girl, I laughed. He drives for Uber. The salon exploded. Not Uber. This man said career? My stylist Maria grabbed my shoulders. GIRLS. We have a code red. The redhead, Orla, looked at me. I looked at her. We both started crying. I pulled her into a hug and suddenly 15 women surrounded us. I'm going to his family reunion in 3 hours, I said, voice shaking. Orla's eyes went huge. He told me he has house viewing Saturday. Maria's face changed. She looked at her assistant and some silent girl conversation happened in 2 seconds. What if she goes with you? Maria said. The salon lost it. Matching outfits. Expose him. His grandma needs to whoop his ass. Things moved fast. I'm giving you both matching copper dye and curtain bangs. On the house. But I'm not taking no for an answer. The girl getting extensions was on her phone. My sister owns a boutique. You're getting dresses. White. Matching. Don't argue. Matching acrylics. Both of you. Now. An older woman appeared. My daughter's a makeup artist. She's already on the way. I have heels. Another client was texting. A teenager came over. Girl, you're glowing even while crying. This man fumbled. Period. 5 girls said in unison. Your revenge era starts now. Even the quiet girl spoke up. Girl, you were about to give this man who still uses Axe body spray your whole life? Like, okay, kinda ate. There she is. Maria cheered. When we looked in the mirror after they finished, I actually felt like a baddie. Eyebrows, lashes, nails, outfit, body, everything was tea. And Orla, the redhead, ate down. You look expensive, Maria whispered, eyes watering. The entire room went silent. I want live updates, Maria said. Make sure you don't leave until that man is screaming crying. One of the old money baddies insisted on driving us in her pink Rolls Royce, and we played All Too Well by T-Swizzle for the entire drive. When we got out, it was like Met Gala meets Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Krusty Connor was at the grill in his Ratchet Lakers apron, completely clueless. When he saw us, every drop of color drained from his face. This is my friend Orla. My voice was brighter than a vanity mirror. That's cool, right? His mom rushed over. Of course, sweetheart. Any friend is family. Connor looked sick. Yeah. Hey, Orla. Hi, Connor. Orla's smile was so sweet it could have given someone diabetes. Then it happened. 15 people were around the food table. His parents, grandma, 3 aunts, 2 sisters. So Connor. My voice cut through all the conversations. Everyone turned. Should we tell them or should Orla? Everything stopped. Connor's face went from confused to terrified in like 2 seconds. Tell them. What? His voice cracked on the last word. Orla linked arms with me and squeezed tight. Let's tell them together. Girls, what's going on? Mrs. Ide Matthews looked between the 3 of us, genuinely concerned. Connor tried to laugh it off. They're just joking, Mom. Are we, though? I said sweetly. We looked at each other one more time. Orla nodded. We're both his girlfriend. We sang. 2 seconds of silence. Then chaos. I held up my phone showing the Snapchat memory. We're engaged. Orla showed Mrs. Matthews her texts. And we've been together for 8 months. Said I was his first love. And here's this morning. Orla scrolled. Where he said he had house viewings. His grandma, this tiny Italian woman, grabbed a wooden spoon from the pasta salad. Mamma mia, Connor Joseph Matthews! I'd never heard her yell. What is wrong with you? Connor tried talking. Mom, I can... Don't. Then Mrs. Matthews turned to US. Her whole face softened. I'm so sorry. I didn't raise him like this. We know, Orla said quietly. Mrs. Matthews spun around. You need to leave. NOW. Mom, now, Connor. His Aunt Carol literally dragged him by the ear to his car. Me and Orla got lit with his family until 2 a.m. However, that's when Orla's mother somehow rang my number. I picked up, and it was Connor on the line. He'd always had anger issues, but he'd never gone this far. Tell everyone this was some sick joke. Or else, Orla, you'll never hear this voice again. He put Orla's mother on the line. Orla's mom's voice comes through shaking and small, and I can hear Connor breathing heavy in the background. My phone screen shows it's been 40 seconds since he started talking, and every second feels like glass cutting through my chest. Orla grabs my wrist so hard I know there'll be marks tomorrow, and Maria leans forward from the back seat trying to hear. The Rolls-Royce swerves slightly, and Sloane corrects it fast, but her knuckles are white on the steering wheel. Connor's voice cuts back in saying we have 1 hour to post on social media that tonight was a prank, or he's not responsible for what happens next. Then the line goes dead. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. The car is still rolling down the street at like 20 miles per hour, and I'm staring at my phone screen watching it go dark. Orla makes this sound that's half sob, half gasp, and Maria starts saying we need to call the police right now. Sloane's already scanning the road, and I see a diner sign lit up in blue neon about half a block ahead. She flips the turn signal and pulls into the parking lot so fast the tires squeal a little. We're under a streetlight, and I can see everything too clearly. Orla's mascara is running again, and Maria has her phone out with 911 already typed in. Sloane puts the car in the park but leaves it running, and the engine hum is the only sound for like 3 seconds. Then everyone starts talking at once, asking if we should drive to the police station or call from here or go back to the reunion to get witnesses. I hold up my hand because my brain is somehow working, even though my hands won't stop shaking. We call 911 right now because Connor is at Orla's mom's house and she's alone and he just made threats. Orla nods and her whole body is trembling like she's freezing even though it's 70 degrees out. I press the call button and put it on speaker so everyone can hear. The dispatcher answers on the second ring asking what my emergency is, and I force my voice to stay level. I explain that my ex showed up at someone's house after we exposed his cheating at a family event, and he just called making threats against that person. The dispatcher asks for the address, and Orla tries to say it, but her voice breaks, so I squeeze her hand, and she tries again. She gets it out in pieces, and the dispatcher repeats it back to confirm. They're sending officers to do a welfare check right now, and they want us to stay on the line until patrol arrives at our location. I give them the diner address, and the dispatcher says a unit is 7 minutes out. Maria's phone starts buzzing, and she looks at the screen, then shows me. The salon group chat is exploding with messages asking if we're okay and where we are. Someone must have posted something because within 30 seconds my phone starts blowing up too. Messages from numbers I don't even recognize saying, "Are you safe and where are you and do you need help?" The dispatcher is still on the line asking if we're in a safe location and if the person who made threats knows where we are. I tell her we're in a public parking lot and he doesn't know we're here. She says that's good, and to stay in the vehicle with doors locked until police arrive. Sloane already has all the doors locked and she's watching the parking lot entrance like Connor might pull in any second. Orla is trying to text her mom, but her hands are shaking too bad to type. Maria takes her phone and asks what she wants to say. Orla whispers that she just wants to know if her mom is okay, and Maria types it out. We all stare at Orla's phone waiting for the 3 dots to show her mom is typing back. Nothing. The dispatcher asks if we're still there, and I say yes. She says the welfare check unit is pulling up to the address now and they'll radio back as soon as they make contact. My chest feels too tight and I can't get a full breath. Orla is crying quietly, and Maria has her arm around her shoulders. Sloane keeps checking all the mirrors like she's expecting something bad. Red and blue lights appear at the parking lot entrance and a patrol car pulls up next to us. The dispatcher says the unit has arrived at our location and asks if we see them. I say yes, and she tells us an officer will speak with us now, and to call back if we need anything else. The line clicks off. A tall officer gets out and walks over to Sloane's window. She rolls it down and he leans down to look at all of us. He introduces himself as Officer Adams and asks if we're the ones who called about the threatening phone call. I nod and start explaining from the beginning about finding out Connor was cheating and going to the family reunion, and what happened when we exposed him. Officer Adams pulls out a notepad and starts writing. I show him my phone with the Snapchat memories of me and Connor in Paris. Orla shows him her text messages with Connor from this morning talking about house viewings. Then I play the voicemail Connor left on my phone 3 hours ago saying he loved me and couldn't wait to see me tonight. Officer Adams's face gets more serious with each piece of evidence. He asks if we have the threatening call recorded, and I realize I don't, because it came through as a regular call, not a voicemail. But Orla's phone shows the call came from her mom's number and lasted 1 minute and 42 seconds. Officer Adams writes all of this down and asks for Orla's mom's full name and address again. His radio crackles and he steps away from the car to answer it. We can hear him asking for an update on the welfare check at that address. Static. Then a voice saying they're on scene and making contact with the resident. Orla grips my hand so tight my fingers go numb, but I don't say anything because I'm just as scared. Officer Adams is nodding and writing more notes. He comes back to the window and says officers are at the house now talking to Orla's mom. We wait. It feels like hours, but it's probably only 5 minutes. His radio crackles again and we all lean forward trying to hear. The voice says the resident is shaken but physically unharmed, and the suspect left the scene before police arrival. Orla starts crying these big gasping sobs of relief, and I'm trying not to lose it myself. Officer Adams tells us this is serious and we need to document everything that happened tonight. He explains that Connor's behavior shows a pattern that's escalating, and the threatening call combined with showing up at someone's house crosses into criminal territory. Maria is nodding and taking notes on her phone like she's building a case file. Officer Adams says we should file formal reports and consider getting restraining orders because this type of situation often gets worse before it gets better. He asks if Orla's mom has somewhere safe to stay tonight, and Orla shakes her head. Officer Adams offers to have someone pick her up and bring her to the station where we can all meet. Orla says yes immediately and gives him her mom's cell number. I suggest she can stay at my apartment because it's a one-bedroom, but I have a pull-out couch and Connor doesn't know where I live. Officer Adams says that's a good plan, and radios for a unit to transport Orla's mom to the station. He tells us to follow him there and we can give our statements and figure out next steps. While we're waiting, he pulls out a business card and writes a name and number on the back. He hands it to me and says this is Ruby Cohen, who works with victims in situations exactly like ours. He suggests we call her first thing tomorrow because she can help us navigate the legal process and safety planning. The fact that there's a person whose whole job is helping people deal with this specific nightmare makes it feel both more real and somehow more manageable. 40 minutes feels like 40 hours sitting in those hard plastic chairs under the fluorescent lights. Orla keeps checking her phone every 30 seconds, and I'm watching the station doors like they might explode. Maria went to get us water from the vending machine, but nobody's drinking it. When the doors finally open and Orla's mom walks in with an officer, Orla literally runs across the waiting room. Her mom looks so small and scared, nothing like the confident woman I met at that family dinner last month. They're hugging and crying, and I can hear Orla apologizing over and over even though none of this is her fault. Officer Adams comes over and asks if Orla's mom is okay to give a statement, and she nods, wiping her eyes with a tissue the officer handed her. We follow them to a small room with a table and chairs, and Officer Adams pulls out a fresh form. Orla's mom explains everything in this shaky voice. How Connor showed up at her front door around 11:30 demanding to know where Orla was. She told him she didn't know because she honestly didn't, and that's when he pushed past her into the house looking in rooms like Orla might be hiding. When he couldn't find her, he got really angry and grabbed Orla's mom's phone off the kitchen counter. He scrolled through until he found my number and called it, making that threat while Orla's mom stood there frozen and scared. After he hung up, he threw the phone at her, not at her face but hard enough that it hit the wall and cracked the screen. Then he just left, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Officer Adams is writing everything down and asking specific questions about what Connor was wearing, if he seemed drunk or on anything, if he damaged anything else. Orla's mom says he was wearing jeans and a black hoodie and he didn't smell like alcohol, but his eyes looked crazy. The whole statement takes maybe 20 minutes, and by the end, Orla's mom is exhausted. Officer Adams says this is really helpful and adds it to the case file. While they're finishing up, I pull out my phone and text my landlord, because I need to give him a heads up that I'm having guests for safety reasons. He responds in like 2 minutes saying he's adding extra security patrols around the building tonight and to let him know if we need anything else. My phone starts going crazy with texts, and I realize word has spread through the salon group chat. Girls I barely talk to are offering spare rooms, pepper spray, baseball bats, someone's brother who's a cop. It's overwhelming in a good way, but also makes the whole situation feel even more real. We leave the station around midnight and drive to my apartment in Maria's car because Sloan had to go home. The whole drive, nobody talks much, we're all just processing. When we get to my building, the security guard waves at me, and I can tell my landlord already talked to him. My apartment is only a one-bedroom, but I have a pull-out couch and we set it up for Orla and her mom to share. Maria insists on staying too and takes the armchair with a blanket. We turn on every single light in the place because somehow the darkness feels worse. Maria keeps making tea that nobody drinks, just holding the warm mugs and staring at nothing. Sloan texts around 1 in the morning saying she's parked outside my building in her car in case we need anything. Part of me thinks that's sweet, and part of me is concerned that she thinks we might need a fast getaway car at 2 in the morning. Nobody can sleep, so we just sit there in my living room, occasionally checking our phones, occasionally crying a little. Around 3, Orla's mom finally falls asleep on the couch, and we throw another blanket over her. The sun starts coming up around 6, and I've never been so happy to see daylight. At exactly 8, I pull out the card Officer Adams gave me and call the number for Ruby Cohen. She answers on the second ring like she was sitting there waiting for someone to call. Her voice is calm and steady, and she asks how we're doing, then says we should come to her office at 10 this morning. She tells us to bring any evidence we have and prepare to spend a few hours going through everything. Something about how prepared she sounds makes me feel like maybe we can actually handle this. Ruby's office is in this plain building downtown that you'd walk right past without noticing. The waiting room has a box of tissues on every surface, these squishy stress balls and pamphlets about safety planning and legal rights. When Ruby calls us back, she's this woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a clipboard. The first thing she says is that we did the right thing calling the police immediately, and I feel like I can finally take a full breath. She explains that she's going to help us create a safety plan and connect us with legal resources. We spend the next 2 hours going through absolutely everything, starting from that moment in the salon when I saw Orla FaceTiming Connor. Ruby takes notes in this detailed way, writing down dates and times and asking really specific questions. She wants to know about Connor's behavior patterns over the whole 3 years. If he ever threatened me before, if he has access to weapons, if he knows where we work and go to the school. Every answer makes the situation feel both more dangerous, because we're listing all these concerning things, and more under control, because someone professional is documenting it all. She asks about his family and friends, where he works, what his daily routine is like. Orla talks about the 8 months they dated and how he was so charming at first, but got weird about her having guy friends. Ruby writes everything down and nods like she's heard this pattern before. Then Ruby explains that we need to document everything from now on using a specific format that courts and police can actually use. She gives us this template for logging incidents with spaces for dates, times, witnesses, exact quotes, and what happened. Orla's mom pulls out her phone and starts writing down everything Connor said that night, word for word, while it's still fresh in her memory. Ruby says exact quotes are really important because they show the specific threats. The next part is digital security, and Ruby walks us through changing all our passwords right there in her office. She has us enable two-factor authentication on every single app and account, turn off location sharing on everything, and check our phone settings for any tracking apps Connor might have installed. Orla goes through her phone and finds a Find My Friends share with Connor that she doesn't remember setting up, and her face goes white. Ruby says delete it immediately, and we watch her do it. She also has us check for any shared photo albums or cloud storage that he might have access to. Then Ruby asks if Connor has keys to any of our places, and my stomach drops because I gave him a spare key to my apartment 6 months ago when he was helping me move some furniture. Ruby says we need to change the locks today, not tomorrow or next week, but today. She gives us the number of a locksmith who does emergency same-day service for situations exactly like this. I'm calling him before we even leave her office, and he says he can come this afternoon. The last thing is work and school because Connor knows where both of us spend our weekdays. Ruby helps us draft emails to our bosses and professors explaining that we have a safety concern and need to alert security about someone who shouldn't be allowed in the building. It's so awkward typing out that my ex might show up and cause problems, but Ruby explains that giving people a heads up can prevent him from talking his way past security. She helps us word it professionally without going into too many details. By the time we leave Ruby's office, it's almost 1 in the afternoon, and we have this whole action plan written down. Change locks, send emails, document everything, check phones for tracking, update emergency contacts. It feels like we're finally doing something instead of just being scared. The locksmith shows up at my apartment around 3 in the afternoon, and he's this older guy with a toolbox that looks like it weighs more than me. Orla's mom sits on my couch watching him work, while Orla and I hover nearby like we're supervising a surgery. He takes out the old lock, and I watch him drill new holes for the deadbolt, the sound making my teeth hurt. He shows us how the chain lock works and demonstrates this rubber door stopper thing that wedges under the door for extra security at night. The whole process takes maybe 40 minutes, and when he's done, he hands me 3 keys and explains that this deadbolt is pick resistant, and the chain can't be cut with regular tools. I ask how much, and he says $400, and I try not to think about my credit card bill, or how much therapy is going to cost, or the legal fees that are probably coming. Orla offers to split it, but I shake my head because Connor was my ex first, and this is my apartment. The locksmith leaves, and we test the new locks about 15 times to make sure they work. That evening, my phone rings, and it's Ruby checking in. She tells us that Officer Adams filed his complete report, and the case got assigned to a detective who works specifically on domestic violence and stalking cases. Her voice sounds pleased when she says this like it's good news. She's already setting up a meeting for us tomorrow morning at 9. Orla asks if this means Connor will get arrested, and Ruby pauses before explaining that the legal system takes time, but we're building a really strong case with all the documentation. I can hear Orla deflate a little at that answer because we both kind of hoped he'd be in jail by now. Ruby reminds us to keep documenting everything and to call her if anything else happens. We're sitting on my couch after the call when my phone starts buzzing with texts from numbers I don't recognize. The first one says, "Hey, is everything okay with you and Connor?" And the second one asks what really happened at the reunion. My stomach drops because I think it's Connor using those burner phones you can buy at gas stations. But then I read them more carefully and realized these are mutual friends, people from our college friend group and his gym buddies. One text says Connor told everyone we made the whole thing up for attention, and another asks if we're really trying to ruin his life over a misunderstanding. I show Orla and she goes pale because her phone is getting the same messages. Maria must have some kind of sixth sense because she texts the salon group chat right then saying that if anyone gets questions about what happened, they should refer people to her, and we're not discussing anything publicly. She adds 3 knife emojis and a crown emoji, and suddenly 15 girls are commenting with support. My phone buzzes again, but this time it's Orla gasping at her screen. She shows me a Facebook message from someone named Sarah Matthews, and I recognize the last name. It's Connor's younger sister, the one who didn't come to the reunion because she was at college. The message is long and starts with "I believe you and I'm so sorry." She writes that she wants to help and offers to be a witness about Connor's past controlling behavior with other girlfriends. She mentions specific incidents from when he dated someone in high school, and how he showed up at her house after she broke up with him. I screenshot it and send it to Ruby immediately. Ruby texts back within minutes saying this is huge because family testimony is really powerful in court. She tells us to document the offer but don't engage directly yet. because it needs to go through proper legal channels. The next morning, we meet Detective Williams at the police station, and he's this tall guy with gray hair who looks like he's seen everything. He's already reviewed all our evidence, including the welfare check report from Orla's mom's house. He spreads out printed copies of our timeline and the text screenshots and the voicemail transcription on his desk. He explains that Connor's threat combined with showing up at a residence gives them grounds for harassment charges. He's also concerned about what he calls the escalation pattern, how Connor went from cheating to threatening in just a few hours. He thinks a restraining order is necessary and actually urgent given the behavior. Detective Williams asks if we've had any contact with Connor since that phone call, and we show him the texts from the unknown numbers. He has us forward everything to his email address and explains that any contact attempts after we've clearly told him to stop will make the case stronger. Ruby jumps in and helps us draft this single text response that just says, "Do not contact me again," before we block each number. The detective writes everything down in his notebook with really neat handwriting. He wants to know about Connor's family and friends, anyone who might help him find us or pass along information about where we are. We list everyone we can think of and he takes notes on each person. Mrs. Matthews' name comes up and he asks if we think she would cooperate with the investigation. I explain that she literally kicked Connor out of the family reunion in front of everyone and has been nothing but supportive to us since. He nods and writes cooperative family member next to her name. We spend the afternoon at this legal aid office meeting with Katya Foreman, who Ruby connected us with. Katya is younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with glasses and a folder that already has our names on it. She explains that she's going to help us file for temporary restraining orders, and the process takes about 2 weeks from filing to the actual hearing. We'll need to present evidence showing that we're in immediate danger. She looks at our evidence binder that's already 2 inches thick with printouts and screenshots and police reports, and says we have a very strong case. Katya helps us fill out the paperwork and explains that we're each filing our own separate order. Me against Connor, Orla against Connor, and Orla's mom against Connor. 3 separate orders means if he violates any single one of them, he's violated all 3. The paperwork asks for detailed descriptions of the threatening behavior, and I have to write out the exact words Connor used on that phone call. My hand shakes writing. He said Orla would never hear her mother's voice again, and I have to stop and breathe. Orla writes her section about finding him at her mom's house, and her mom writes about him grabbing her phone and making threats while standing in her kitchen. Filing the paperwork at the courthouse feels weird and official and scary all at the same time. The clerk is this middle-aged woman who processes everything without much expression, like she does this every day. She tells us we'll get a court date within 10 days for the full hearing. Until then, we have emergency temporary orders that go into effect right now, immediately. She hands us each a packet of papers in manila envelopes and explains we need to keep copies with us at all times in case we need to show police. The temporary orders say Connor has to stay 500 feet away from all of us and our homes and workplaces starting right now. Walking out of the courthouse with those papers in my hands feels surreal, like I'm watching someone else's life happen. That night around 9, my phone rings with a number I don't recognize, but when I answer, it's Mrs. Matthews asking if she can meet with all of us to talk. My first thought is no way, but I tell her I need to check with some people first and I'll call her back. I immediately text Ruby explaining the situation, and she responds within minutes saying it's okay to meet, but only in a public place with someone else there as a witness. Orla agrees when I call her and we decide on a coffee shop near my apartment for the next morning. Maria volunteers to come with us before I even finish asking, and says she's bringing her phone to record everything just in case. Mrs. Matthews texts back that she understands completely and will see us at 10. None of us sleep much that night because we keep texting back and forth about what she might want to say. Orla thinks maybe Connor sent her to convince us to drop everything, but I don't know because she seemed pretty done with him at the reunion. Morning comes and Maria picks us up early so we can get to the coffee shop first and choose our seats. We sit at a table near the window where other people can see us, and Maria positions herself, so she has a clear view of the door. Mrs. Matthews walks in exactly at 10, and she looks terrible, like she hasn't slept in days, with dark circles under her eyes and her hair pulled back in a messy way. She sits down across from us and immediately starts apologizing for Connor's behavior and saying she's horrified by what he did. She tells us she wants us to know she's willing to provide a statement to the police about his history of anger issues that she now realizes she ignored for too long. Then she says she wants to pay for our therapy and any legal costs, because she feels responsible for not getting him help sooner when she first noticed the warning signs. Maria is taking notes on her phone the whole time, and I can see her recording symbol is on. Orla starts crying and reaches across the table but doesn't actually touch Mrs. Matthews because Ruby told us to maintain physical boundaries. I explain that we appreciate the offer about costs because honestly we're both completely broke from this whole situation between the locksmith and taking time off work and everything else. But I also tell her that Ruby advised us not to sign anything or make any formal agreements beyond accepting help with expenses. Mrs. Matthews nods and says she completely understands, and she's not trying to make this complicated or tie us to anything. She just asks that we please stay safe and let her know if Connor tries to contact us because she wants to know what he's doing. Then she mentions she's changing her locks too because Connor has a key to her house, and she doesn't trust him anymore after what he did to Orla's mom. That hits different hearing his own mother say she doesn't trust him. We exchange numbers and she insists on paying for our coffee before she leaves, and Maria makes sure to save the recording to 3 different places. Walking back to the car, Orla says she never expected his mom to be on our side like this. And I agree because usually families defend their kids no matter what. 2 days later, I'm at work trying to focus on my computer screen when security calls my desk phone. The guy says someone matching Connor's description tried to get into the building asking for me by name. They turned him away and told him he needed to leave the property, but the whole thing is documented in their incident log. My hands start shaking as I thank him and hang up. I immediately pull out my phone and call Detective Williams while walking to the bathroom so nobody hears me. He answers and I explain what just happened, and he tells me to send him a photo of the security report as soon as I can get it. I go down to the security office and the guard prints out the log entry showing the date and time and description, and I take a picture right there. Detective Williams texts back within 5 minutes saying this is good evidence of continued harassment and contact attempts. He tells me to document everything and stay aware of my surroundings when leaving work. I spend the rest of the day paranoid and jumpy every time someone walks past my desk. That evening, Orla calls me crying so hard I can barely understand her at first. Connor showed up at her mom's house again, even though her mom wasn't home this time. A neighbor saw him trying to look in the windows and called the police right away. By the time the patrol car got there, Connor was already gone, but they filed another report with the neighbor's statement. I can hear Orla's mom in the background trying to comfort her, and I feel sick thinking about him showing up at that house again after what he did there. Detective Williams calls me back after I text him about it and says the pattern of Connor showing up at multiple locations associated with us is building a really strong stalking case. He explains that each incident adds to the evidence that this isn't just a guy being upset about a breakup, but someone who's actively tracking and following us. The next day, Ruby sets up what she calls a safety planning session at her office. We spend 2 hours going through every possible place Connor might show up and exactly what we should do in each situation. She has us practice calling 911 and describing our location clearly. We practice taking photos from far away without getting close enough to be in danger. She shows us how to identify safe locations near our homes and workplaces where we can go if we see him. It feels like we're preparing for some kind of disaster drill, but Ruby keeps saying that muscle memory can literally save your life when you're panicking and can't think straight. She makes us repeat the steps over and over until we can do them without thinking. By the end, my brain hurts, but I also feel more prepared than scared. The court date for our restraining order hearing finally arrives, and we all get dressed professionally like Katya told us to. I wear a navy dress that makes me look older and more serious, and Orla wears something similar in gray. We meet Katya outside the courthouse, and she walks us through what's going to happen and reminds us to stay calm and let her do the talking. When we walk into the courtroom, Connor is already there sitting with his lawyer, and seeing him makes my heart start racing immediately. Orla grabs my hand and squeezes it tight. We sit on the opposite side of the courtroom, and I focus on breathing the way Ruby taught me during our practice sessions. The judge comes in, and everyone stands, and then we sit back down, and I can feel Connor looking at us, but I don't look back. Katya stands up when it's our turn and starts presenting our evidence in this really organized way. She shows the phone records proving the threatening call. She plays the voicemail recording, and hearing Connor's voice in the quiet courtroom makes my stomach turn. She presents the welfare check report from when police went to Orla's mom's house. She shows the security log from my work building. She reads the neighbor's statement about seeing Connor at the house trying to look in windows. Everything is laid out so clearly that it's impossible to deny what happened. Connor's lawyer stands up and tries to argue that this was all just a misunderstanding, and emotions were running high after a difficult breakup. He says Connor never intended to actually hurt anyone, and was just upset about the situation. The judge looks completely unimpressed with this argument, and I can see her face getting more serious. She looks directly at Connor and asks him if he went to Orla's mother's house and made those statements that are in the police report. Connor stands up and admits he went there, but claims he was just upset and didn't mean the threat seriously. The judge cuts him off before he can say anything else. She says that intent doesn't matter when someone feels threatened, and the pattern of him showing up at multiple locations is very concerning to her. She grants all 3 temporary restraining orders for 6 months with a review hearing scheduled after that time. The orders say Connor has to stay at least 500 feet away from all of us and our homes and our workplaces, and even Studio 67 salon. He's ordered to have no contact with us directly or through other people. Then the judge adds that he has to attend anger management counseling and provide proof that he's going to the sessions at the review hearing. Walking out of that courtroom with those signed orders in my hands feels like the first real win we've had since this whole nightmare started. That weekend, Maria organizes what she calls a safety celebration at Studio 67, and honestly, it feels weird calling it a party when we're all still jumpy about every notification on our phones. The same girls who helped us that first day show up with snacks, and Sloane brings champagne in these fancy glasses she borrowed from her mom. We sit in the styling chairs, and Maria raises her glass to toast restraining orders and good judges, and everyone cheers, but I notice Orla is gripping her glass really tight. The celebration feels good, but there's this edge to everything, like we're all waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maria keeps checking her phone, and I realize she's watching the door, making sure Connor doesn't somehow show up, even though legally he can't come within 500 feet of this place. We eat cupcakes someone brought and swap stories about the craziest salon moments we've witnessed, but the whole time I'm thinking about how this shouldn't be necessary, how we shouldn't need to celebrate basic safety. Ruby calls me right in the middle of the party, and I step outside to take it because her voice sounds serious. She tells me Detective Williams is moving forward with criminal charges for harassment and stalking based on everything we documented. The DA's office is reviewing the case and will decide on formal charges within a few weeks. I feel this rush of validation, like finally someone official is taking this seriously beyond just the restraining order. Then Ruby's voice gets quieter and she warns me that this might make Connor more angry or more desperate, so we need to stay super vigilant. I go back inside and tell everyone what Ruby said, and Maria immediately starts making a plan for us to check in with each other twice a day. Orla looks scared when I mention Connor might get more desperate, and her mom puts an arm around her shoulders. The next week, I start seeing a therapist that Ruby recommended who works specifically with people dealing with trauma from relationship situations. At first, I feel kind of stupid sitting in her office because Connor never actually hit me or anything physical like that. The therapist, whose name is Dr. Sarah, asks me to describe what happened, and when I get to the part about the phone call threatening Orla, she stops me. She explains that threats and control are abuse too, even without physical violence. We spend the whole session going through my relationship with Connor, and she keeps pointing out things I thought were normal that were actually red flags, like how he always needed to know where I was, or how he got mad when I went out with friends without him. Talking through everything makes me realize I missed so many warning signs because I thought abuse had to look a certain way. Dr. Sarah gives me homework to write down every controlling thing I can remember from our relationship, and by the time I finish the list, it's 3 pages long. I text Orla after my appointment, and she tells me she and her mom started going to therapy together to process that night when Connor showed up at the house. Orla says she's been carrying around so much guilt about bringing Connor into her mom's life, and the therapist is helping her understand that Connor's choices are not her responsibility. Her mom apparently keeps telling her she's proud of how Orla handled everything, which makes me want to cry, because that's exactly what Orla needs to hear. We're both doing this work to heal, and it feels important even though it's exhausting. 3 weeks after the restraining order hearing, I walk out to my car after work, and there's a note tucked under the windshield wiper. My stomach drops before I even read it because I know it's from Connor. The note says he just wants to talk and apologize and asks me to please call him. I don't touch the note at all. I just take photos of it still on my car from multiple angles. Then I call Detective Williams and he tells me to stay where I am, and he's sending an officer to collect it as evidence. The officer shows up 20 minutes later and uses gloves to put the note in an evidence bag. He takes my statement about finding it and asks if there are security cameras in the parking lot. We check with building security, and sure enough, there's footage of Connor walking up to my car at 3 p.m. when he knew I'd be at work. The violation gets documented and reported to the court immediately. I call Orla from my car before I drive home, and she can hear in my voice that something happened. When I tell her about the note, she gets really quiet, and then asks if this means he's going to keep coming after us. I don't have an answer for that. Katya calls me the next morning and says she's filing a motion about the violation right now. She explains that the judge will likely issue a warrant for Connor's arrest for violating the restraining order. 2 days later, Connor turns himself in and spends a night in jail before his lawyer gets him out on bail. The bail conditions include GPS monitoring and strict enforcement of the restraining order terms. Katya emails me a copy of the court order, and I read through all the technical language about electronic monitoring and violation consequences. Knowing Connor is being tracked by GPS gives me the first full night of sleep I've had in a month. I wake up the next morning feeling actually rested instead of exhausted and jumpy. Ruby calls to check in and explains that if he comes within 500 feet of any of us, the monitoring company will alert the police immediately. She says it's not a perfect system, but it's something real. I ask her what happens if he just takes off the GPS monitor, and she tells me that would be another crime and another warrant. The DA officially files criminal charges for stalking and harassment later that week, and Connor's court date for those charges is scheduled for next month. Katya explains that we might have to testify at trial, but there's also a chance he'll take a plea deal to avoid going to trial. Either way, having official charges filed makes everything feel more real and more protected at the same time. Maria does something amazing the following week. She starts what she calls a safety fund at the salon where clients can donate to help cover our therapy costs and legal fees and all the security stuff we've had to pay for. She puts up a little sign by the register explaining the situation without using our names, and within a week it raises over $3,000. When Maria hands me the check, I actually start crying right there in the salon because I cannot believe strangers would help us like this. The money means I can keep seeing Dr. Sarah without stressing about how to pay for it, and Orla can get the security system her mom needs. Maria hugs me and says, "This is what community does. We take care of each other." A few days later, Connor's lawyer reaches out to Katya about a potential plea deal. The offer is that Connor would plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for probation, continued counseling, and an extended restraining order. Katya presents the whole thing to me and Orla over the phone, explaining all the pros and cons of accepting versus going to trial. She says a trial would mean we have to testify and relive everything in front of a courtroom, but we'd potentially get stronger consequences. The plea deal means guaranteed consequences without putting us through that trauma. We tell Katya we need time to think about it, and she says to discuss it with Ruby and our therapists before deciding anything. I hang up and immediately text Orla asking when we can meet to talk through this because it feels like the biggest decision we've had to make since this whole thing started. Orla and I spend the next 3 days talking through every angle of the plea deal with Ruby and our therapists. We meet at Ruby's office and she walks us through what accepting means versus going to trial. 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, restraining order extended, community service. If Connor violates anything, he goes straight to jail. Ruby pulls out her notebook and lists the pros and cons in 2 columns. Trial means we testify and relive everything in front of strangers, and his lawyer tries to make us look bad. Plea deal means guaranteed consequences without that trauma. My therapist says I need to decide what feels safer for my mental health. Orla's therapist tells her the same thing. We sit in my apartment that night eating takeout, and Orla looks at me across the coffee table. Neither of us wants to go to trial. The thought of standing in a courtroom while Connor's lawyer asks me questions makes my stomach hurt. We text Katya the next morning and tell her we want to accept the plea deal. She responds within an hour saying she'll contact the DA's office and get the hearing scheduled. 2 weeks later, we're back at the courthouse, and this time it feels different. The plea hearing happens in a smaller courtroom with way fewer people. Connor stands next to his lawyer in a button-down shirt looking nervous. The judge asks if he understands the terms of the plea agreement, and Connor says yes. Then the judge makes him say out loud what he did. Connor has to admit he stalked us. He has to admit he harassed us. He has to admit he made threats. Hearing those words come out of his mouth in front of a judge and court reporter, and everyone makes something shift in my chest. It's real now. It's official. The judge accepts the plea and looks directly at Connor. Any violation of the probation terms or restraining order means immediate jail time. No second chances. We walk out of the courthouse and Orla stops on the steps. She turns to me and her eyes are watery, but she's smiling. It's actually over. I realize she's right. The legal part is done. Connor has consequences. We're protected. 2 months pass and life starts feeling normal again in a way I didn't think was possible. I moved to a new apartment across town that Connor never knew about. The building has a security gate and cameras everywhere. My landlord knows the situation and keeps extra watch. Orla's mom gets a full security system installed with cameras and motion sensors. The installation guy spends 4 hours setting everything up and teaching her how to use the app. We still text each other every morning. Good morning, I'm safe, how are you? Every night before bed. Good night, I'm home, doors are locked. The constant fear has faded to occasional anxiety. Sometimes I still check over my shoulder in parking lots. Sometimes Orla still gets jumpy when her phone rings. But we're not living in terror anymore. We're living. Ruby calls one afternoon and asks if we'd be willing to speak at a training session for new victim advocates. She says our case could help teach them how important immediate response and safety planning are. Orla and I talk about it and decide yes. We want to help other people. The training happens at a community center downtown, and there are maybe 20 people in the room. All professionals who work with people in situations like ours. Ruby introduces us and we stand at the front of the room. I tell them about the salon discovery and the family reunion and the threatening phone call. Orla talks about her mom and the fear and the restraining orders. We explain how Ruby's immediate response and safety planning made us feel protected instead of helpless. How Katya walked us through every legal step. How Officer Adams took us seriously from minute 1. When we finish, several advocates come up to thank us. One woman says our story will change how she handles intake calls. Another says she's going to implement some of Ruby's safety planning techniques immediately. Walking out of there feels empowering instead of scary. We helped people. Our nightmare might prevent someone else's. Studio 67 becomes our monthly tradition. Maria calls it sisterhood maintenance, and honestly, it's perfect. The original group of salon girls meets up once a month. We get our hair done, catch up on life, celebrate wins. Last month, Orla got promoted at work to assistant manager. We all screamed so loud the entire salon turned to stare. Maria brought cupcakes. Someone popped champagne. It felt like a family celebration. These women who were strangers 6 months ago are now our people. They check in on us. They celebrate with us. They show up. I run into Connor's sister at a coffee shop 3 months after the plea hearing. She's in line ahead of me, and when she turns around with her latte, she stops. We haven't spoken since the family reunion. She pulls me aside near the door, and her face is serious. She says Connor is actually going to his counseling sessions. He's taking anger management seriously. She's not asking us to forgive him or have any contact. She just wanted us to know he's following the court orders. I appreciate the update and tell her that, but I also make it clear we're not interested in reconciliation or communication. She nods and says she understands. She just thought we deserved to know he's getting help. Mrs. Matthews texts me every few weeks asking if we need anything. She always respects our boundaries, never pushes for information about us or tries to defend Connor. She started volunteering with a domestic violence organization and says helping other families is how she's processing what her son did. She still covers our therapy costs without question. Her genuine remorse and active support means more than any apology Connor could give. She's showing up. She's doing the work. She's helping other people because she couldn't help her son before he hurt people. 6 months after that terrifying phone call from Orla's mom's house, Orla and I are having brunch at our favorite spot downtown. The place has outdoor seating and good mimosas and the best French toast. We're halfway through our meals when Orla puts down her fork and looks at me. Can you believe we went from FaceTime discovery to legal victory in half a year? I laugh because when she says it like that, it sounds wild. 6 months ago, I was getting my hair done and discovered my fiancé was cheating. Now I'm sitting here with my best friend eating brunch and feeling genuinely safe. I tell her the salon sisterhood is the best thing that came out of the worst situation. She raises her mimosa glass and I raise mine. We toast to Maria and Ruby and Katya and Officer Adams and Mrs. Matthews and every single person who showed up for us. We toast to each other. We're both moving forward with our lives now. Genuinely happy. Actually safe. We have jobs and apartments and friends and futures. The friendship we built in crisis is stronger than anything Connor tried to break. We survived. We're thriving. And we did it together with an army of women who refused to let us fall. All right, that wraps it up for today. Hopefully you picked up something useful to tuck into your back pocket. If you like stories that double as lessons, subscribing is the way to go.